A very warm good afternoon to everyone watching. Good afternoon. I welcome you to the live teleconference conducted by the Department of English at Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University. This live teleconference is catered to the students of MA English first year. Joined with me are our esteemed guests, Professor Rani Rajitha Madhuri, Dean, Faculty of Arts at Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We also have Dr. Shobha, Assistant Professor at Veeranari, Chakali, Ilamma Women's University.
Thank you.
Students, you are free to discuss with us. You can call on the following number 040-2368-0456. Feel free to contact us. Professor Madhuri, can you please introduce us about the teleconference?
Thank you, Shravya. It gives me immense pleasure to be associated with you, my dear learners. Once again, welcome to Department of English. On behalf of Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University, I welcome you all for this MA first year program. The course is on American literature. I think you can see this book which you are going to learn about one of the fifth block, which is on recent trends. I think you can see this. If you have the book with you, kindly take the book so that it will be easy for you to understand the lesson in a better way. So let me start with what is American literature and why we are going to discuss specifically the recent trends. When it comes to the American literature, we are having 5 blocks in the American literature. If you have the textbook, it will be easy for you to understand how many blocks are there. The first block consists of introduction of the major themes and what kind of themes are dealt in the American literature. We got an information is there in the first block, starting with the age of reason, revolution and the romantic age. Coming to the second block, we are not going to discuss the 1, 2, 3 and 4 blocks, but the fifth block is on American literature recent trends. The second block consists of the fiction, where we start with the American short story and some writers who are very eminent in American literature. Right from the beginning, we are trying to understand fiction in the perspective of the American context. Coming to the next one is on American poetry. What is poetry? How poetry is different from fiction? What kind of poetry? What are the themes that are dealt in the American poetry? We can see in the third block, starting with Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson and also contemporary poetry in American literature. This is again with the third block. Coming to the fourth block, we have eminent writers coming from American drama. How drama is different from the fiction and the writers, what kind of themes they are able to take into the cultural and socio-linguistic aspects we can see in the drama as such. So we have 2 writers. If I am right, if you are having the textbook with you, unit 15, which is from Desire Under the Elms, and next one is Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, which is a very contemporary writings of 1920s, where we can see the First World War and Second World War reflection of the T.S. Eliot's Wasteland is also there in our syllabus. The last block, which focuses on recent trends, today we are discussing on, next slide, we are discussing on the recent trends in American literature, women's voices, Jewish writing and African American literature. So my dear students, if you want to learn specifically about the recent trends, you can feel free to call us on the numbers which were given by our university. Even the numbers are going to be scrolled across and it is a live program, so you can contact us immediately for the clarification or for your observations. Thank you so much, Shravya, for giving me an opportunity for giving the introduction of American literature MA first year second course. Thank you.
Ma'am, now that you have just introduced the concept to us, can you tell us what the importance of women's voices in American literature is?
Yeah, Shravya, when it comes to women's voices, how it is important to understand the mainstream literature from the marginal literature. When it comes to the concept of women, what kind of writings and who are the writers who gave lot of importance to, because there is a transition period where we can clearly see women's writing is different from the men's writing, because whether it can be the publication or the author herself is going to be scrutinized in the context of Second World War and Third World War. When you see, publishers also hesitated when it comes to the women writing. They are considered as intellectually weak when it compared to the men writing. So there is importance is given to the writers here, because in the 21st century and coming to the 22nd century as such, we can see women are playing a vital role not only in the cultural context but also in the normal socio-political and economic issues. So starting with women voice, we can see very eminent writers like Toni Morrison, and a lot of autobiographical content we can see, and how they reflected their families, their domestic life, how personal is political. We can see this statement very clearly, because whenever in the context of the drama or in the context of the fiction, we can see that society is reflected in any work that an artist is going to write in different genres, but the context, but the core subject will be the same, right? So they are reflecting. Women voices are different from the other, where O is going to be a capital, because whenever women are writing, it comes from their lived experiences. So this is a small introduction. Now I request Dr. Shobha to throw more light on the women writings and women voices.
So as we see the title in Unit 18, Women Voices, such a lovely title it has. So now let us see in reality these voices have done their justice or not. So first we can begin with Toni Morrison and her works. So I have picked up two works of Toni Morrison. The first is The Bluest Eye. In The Bluest Eye, the novel begins with the autumn. So season plays really an important season in Toni Morrison's novel. So as a metaphor. So the first character which has been introduced here is Pecola, along with her two friends, Claudia and Frida.
Yes.
So what we see among these three is that Claudia and Frida, they are the sisters, and Pecola is the girl who is being raped by her father. So that is the reason why she has been shifted to her friend's house. There she has good time along with her. But as the season passes, so Claudia becomes pregnant, as well as she delivers her baby during the summer season, the baby which dies. And later on we also have a clarity about the other two characters, Claudia and Frida. So Claudia and Frida, what they do, they try to sell, to make some financial helps. So they try to sell the marigold seeds, and when selling them, and during the spring season when they try to just seed them into the earth, it doesn't blossom. So why it doesn't blossom, that is been connected to Pecola, where we see the Pecola who delivers the dead child. So that says that the innocence of that Pecola is being dead, it is no more. So how it is been portrayed in a beautiful way with the connections of the season, that has been seen in a lovely way. So at the end, the biggest thing which she wanted to have is the recognition in the white society. She wanted to have the bluest eye, as we see the title, The Bluest Eye. So she wishes till the end, but she doesn't really get that at the end of the novel, but she has that wish to become beautiful, to be identified in the society. So the next novel which I have picked of Toni Morrison is Sula. So in Sula we have two important characters, Sula and her friend Nell. So we really see that Sula, she goes opposite to the society, and she is being titled as the evil of the society. And next when we see Nell is a very sweet girl, and the friendship of them is also too good up to some extent, but as they grow up they separate from each other, and we see that Nell, like other women, she wants to have a family, she wants to fall in love, then she meets Jude, she falls in love, she gets married, and she has children. So this is the thing which she goes on through her life. But Sula, who is outside this culture and community, when she comes back, she meets Nell, and she sees that the things which other women has done, Nell also has done the same thing by being part of the marriage system, but Sula doesn't accept these things. And we also come to know that Nell, the husband of Nell, Jude, so who is being treated here as a snake, and also symbolically we have the birthmark of Sula, which is the rose. So rose, which really emphasizes the beauty of this Sula, and which also makes Nell attracted towards her. So these are the symbols which she uses to portray her novels. And also we have one more symbol, the river symbol. So river is life as well as death, because once when they during their childhood they see a little boy, so the three of them, when they played near the river, so unfortunately the boy falls down into the river. So life, it is the life as well as death, so it is a death here. So in another incident where we see the whole one of the person here, he just talks about the suicidal, the suicidal attempts, the people who have faced the war. So about that he just talks and he involves the people, but people don't get attracted towards him. So all those speeches takes place near this river. So river is a life and also the river is the death. So this is how these two beautiful things she has said in the, so symbolically in a very easy manner she is trying to present it to the people so that they can connect. The black people who are part of this society, they can also connect themselves towards the beauty and the kind of racism, identity. They are really yearning for those things in the society. So we have seen these things in the novels of Toni Morrison, which I have picked up. Thank you.
Yeah. Where Dr. Shobha was trying to tell, can I have the text there? Yeah. So this is the text that we were trying to discuss here, because when it comes to how women writing is different, I think, is it okay? Clear? Yeah. So this is the bluest eye, and it starts with a very interesting note, the starting with the autumn, where they say like they are going to have a conversation, and the first chapter deals with National Suicide Day. See, something which is very important in Toni Morrison's voices is when it comes to naming, or when it comes to giving the importance of names that come from one perspective or the other perspective. Yeah, it is very clear for us to see from a I'll just read few lines from this so that it will be easy for us to understand. Even the narrative style of that particular text is very clear in Toni Morrison. It is something gives an experimental narrative style. First one is like with a small sentences and with all full stops. When it comes to the second passage, the same passage is repeated without any comma, without any full stop. And when it comes to the next paragraph, we can see there is no spaces even between the words. So that is something very, very interesting for us when it comes to the narrative style, right? So another thing we can observe in the bluest eye, it starts with Pecola, breed love. So there is no breeding of love. There is no family as such. There is no something which we can see very clearly that it is always been a rootlessness can be seen very clearly in the bluest eye. And coming to the next point here, how can you give some more examples from the Sula? How Sula is different from Nell?
So when we see Sula's character, she also follows the path of her mother. So the evil path, as we said, that having affairs with so many men and being too strong, maybe in the part of education, and she doesn't believe in about beauty or something like that, but she has created her own identity in this novel. That is what we see here. This is what we see here. So when we compare other writers also, women writers, so we like when we just consider the Toni Morrison Sula and other characters, when we just look into them, so the kind of identity they are yearning for, we don't see the same thing with the character of Sula. So she is an independent character, we can consider her in that manner.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha. Thank you, Professor Madhuri. Now that we have studied about Toni Morrison in detail, can you please expand on how these similar experimental forms can also be seen in women's poetry, keeping in mind Sylvia Plath, ma'am?
Yeah. When it comes to the women writers, starting from the World War II, women literature emerged as a coherent entity. When it comes to the experience, being a woman itself is, they deal with different kinds of issues relating to the women and the Second World War and the First World War. Whether it can be Anne Sexton or Sylvia Plath, it lets the women express their identity freely without tied down to what the society expects of them. I think you can see in some of the slides where we are trying to start with Joyce, a significant writer who paved way for the women's voice in literature, depicts the life of ordinary people in a middle class society. It is not about the elite, but it is specific about the middle class, how women started, and it is not only from one section of the society, but we can see very clearly Afro-American writers, the first generation writers, what kind of concepts and what kind of engagement they have in the society, that is reflected in the poetry. Whether it can be in any poem, we can take some poems from Sylvia Plath as such. Violence is frequently seen in her fiction. We can see very clearly why violence is there and what kind of violence, because the triple jeopardy which we see in African American literature, because they are slaves to the, not only for the white men but also for the black men as such. So, they are slaves to the slave, and this is what we see in some of the works of other writers like Zora Neale Hurston's autobiography, Their Eyes Are Watching God. One of the very prominent writer, where the first generation writers started to see different aspects of American literature with a different voice as such. And when it comes to Joyce, she talks about urban America in her works through symbols. What is the importance of symbolism? A symbol is not only going to see, gives a representation of one perspective, but different perspectives are going to be represented by that symbolic gestures. So, this kind of also we can see in some of the women poetry. I am just taking few lines from Sylvia Plath. Next one. We already completed Toni Morrison. So, I am going to directly to the Sylvia Plath, where the work is on Lady Lazarus. I have done it again, 1 year in every 10 I manage it. A sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, my right foot. A paperweight, my face a featureless fine Jew linen. Peel off the napkin, oh my enemy, do I terrify. See, the words that we can see here are not loaded with lot of jargon, but very simple words which are which is it's going to represent the day-to-day life, the day-to-day impressions of or the experiences of that particular individual. So, in a lighter tone, we can see that as simple words, but what exactly the author or the writer or in that particular poem wanted to convey, that is in between lines, we can understand what kind of seriousness is there in that particular genre. Okay. These are my hands, my knees, I may be skin and bone. Nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened, I was 10, it was an accident. See, it is representing the age of a girl and it happened. It is not directly giving the information, but it is the hint. It is an accident, right? Nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened was 10, it was an accident. The second time I meant to lost it out. Yeah, next one. I think the poetry is there in that. Yeah, you can see this, how the 3 lines specifically from Lady Lazarus, all the poetry is going to be in 3 lines and everything has got one single concept. I mean, the concept is very clear from first passage to the first paragraph to the last paragraph, or first paraphrase to the last paragraph. As the second time I meant to lost it out and not come back at all, I rock shut. As a she shell, they had to call and pick the worms of me like sticky pearls dying. see the symbols that we can see is pearls, but are they going to be the significant in this specific context? No. So this is something which is very peculiar with Sylvia Plath. And also a cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling. If if a man is going to write, they are not going to write about this kind of symbols specifically when it comes to the soap or a wedding ring, because that is considered as purely personal. But when it comes to the women, their lived experiences are reflected in their poetry or in the other writings. Yeah, I think now Dr. Shobha will give some more information about the other writers as such. Yes.
So like the other women writers
This is an
has been described here as now I would like to go with Maya Angelou. So the beautiful poem of Maya Angelou, I know why the bird,
Caged
yeah,
birds
I
sing.
know why the caged birds sing. So the title itself indicates that, but here it's not only about one caged bird, it's also about the another free bird which is outside the cage. So the caged bird here is been indicated as the black women, and the free bird which is outside the cage, that is the free bird which belongs to white community, that is a white white community bird. So the caged bird, even though it is being suffered in the cage, so the wings of the bird is being clipped and the legs of the bird is being tied, but still it has the throat to express its desire and what is happening with that and what it wants to express through its voice. So that is such a beautiful thing. See, even though everything is been like everything, the things have been tied up, it is clipped out, but still the bird has the desire to express its views, its identity, and how it is suffering inside the cage. And on the other side we see the white community, that is a bird which has been described in the form of a bird. So again the symbols have been used in a very nice manner to express these things. So when you say the free bird which is outside, so it can fly, it can just touch the sky, it doesn't have any limit, but the cage bird, it has the limit, it has to be always inside the cage, but still it speaks, so that is why it can sing. So on the other hand we also have the other writers like as Madam has already discussed about Sylvia Plath. On the other hand, we also have Annie Sexton. So Annie Sexton, who has written about the addict. So this is a experience as well as a confession about the experiences which she has with the medication which she goes on. So every day she has to take 8 tablets, and every 2 tablets are of the same color. So 4 different colors we see. But the way she takes the tablet, the medication, and the way she is trying to solve her issues, the health issues. So we see that in a playful manner she consumes those tablets, and the way the poem is presented in a very playful manner. When you see all these comparisons, the kind of the medicines which are so colorful, she talks about which, and how she just pops that medicine like throwing a football into her mouth. So all these things are in a very playful manner, in a witty way. So even though it's about death, but she expresses that in a very witty and a comical way, so that it is been understood by the reader in a very clear manner. So that is the art of Annie Sexton. We can say that how beautifully she presents it. So through her. So when we see Sylvia Plath also, she just compares the death as a ceremony. So again that can also be see the kind of writers they are. So even though they talk about death and just express those experiences about themselves, but still they are able to confess what they want to do in their life and how life has taken in their past, and those are the reasons why they have been into the depression, and even though they are expressing the death, so that is really a lovely thing to express the death also. So these are the 2 famous. Again we have one more writer here, Andrea Kennedy. So about Andrea Kennedy also we have such a lovely thing to say, and I think one of the work which Andrea Kennedy has done, so she has written about House of a Funny Negro. So the title itself is really funny. So here we have an important character called Sarah. The Sarah, she is being born to a black man and a white woman. So she has to go through the crisis of 2 communities at the same time. So which is really a tough thing for Sarah, but she dreams. So as we see Pecola who dreams of bluest eye, here Sarah also wants to be a Queen Victoria, see, which is really a funny thing which cannot in reality happen. The same way for Pecola the bluest eye cannot happen. So I think these things are connected with each other, the kind of things which have been displayed here, and the reader of the black community people, I think they accept this because these are the personal experience of every black community women which is being displayed in this writings of their personal works. So as a form of an experience. So I would like to conclude here about them.
Yeah, thank you Shobha. I think yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha. Now that we have understood women's voices, Professor Madhuri, Can you please elaborate on how Toni Morrison's works expand racism and societal beauty standards that are recurrent both in the society and in her literature, please?
Yeah, thank you, Shravya. As rightly pointed out by Shobha, Dr. Shobha, when she said the title is Funny Negro. There is nothing, generally it looks very simple and comical way, in a comical way, but there is lot of meaning in that. Whom do you call funny? The first thing is, for the mainstream, it may look funny, but for the subaltern, for the margins, it is not funny. It is their life. And the word Negro is also a very, very degraded word. So, by making that the title as such itself is something which is a kind of a rebellious nature that we can see. It may look comical, but the seriousness of the subject is very clear, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Shobha. When it comes to Shravya asked me about Toni Morrison, starting with Toni Morrison's first book, The Bluest Eye, where we got an elaborate description about how the main characters, the protagonists, were able to have a conversation with their friends, and what kind of white standards all the time the black people have got that kind of an urge to get a blue eye. By getting the blue eyes, by accepting that the color of a black person is undigestible, not only from the white standards, but they themselves thought there is no value for their life. That is what we can see in The Bluest Eye, whether it can be Pecola breed love, where there is no breeding of love, or we can go for the next one, which is a continuation of Pecola breed love, is a 10 years young child. When it comes to Sula, she is a teenager, and Sula and Nell both are friends, and the grandmother of Sula, the naming of that is also very important when it comes to the black writers. When she said Iva peace, Hannah peace is the mother of Sula, but there is no peace in their life. And unfortunately, when Sula is trying to have a conversation, the community stands against Sula, against the white standards. They become an internal enemy to each other. The conversations between Hannah and the mother of Eva Peace is a grandmother, Hannah Peace is the mother, and Sula Peace is the child. So there is a direct influence of how Eva is someone who protects the child by keeping her leg under the train so that she can get an insurance amount. With that, she will be raising her children. And she says, there is enough of space in my womb when it comes to the son who became a drug addict, and finally he becomes a lethargic person like a vegetable. And he is no more a normal person, and after coming back from the Second World War. At that time, you can see how the black women tried to protect the family not only from one perspective, but with a 1,000-fold protection. Whereas that both the children become very futile, but Sula become a very rebellious child. How Sula is representing the black community, how the society is responding to her rebellious nature, we can clearly see when she says, and the conversation between Sula and Nell, after lot of different situations, she says, I don't want to become someone else. I quote, I don't want to become someone else, but I want to be myself. So this assertion, self-identity, we can clearly see in the second novel of the Toni Morrison, Bluest Eye. There is always a parallel when it comes to women writers, whether it can be a Jewish writer or African American writer or a Aboriginals from Australia. Coming to the third work of Toni Morrison, it is Tar Baby, where the first one in the Bluest Eye, it is Pecola Breedlove, in the second it is Sula, and in the Song of Solomon and Tar Baby, we can see the women who are not the first generation educated but the second generation students, where they go into the world with lot of potential, but at the same time there is a parallel that we can see with the third world countries like India as well as other third world countries whom we consider the Dalit voices. Though the Dalit get education, though the subalterns get the education, but they are always considered as a secondary citizen. The same thing we can see, though the black people or the colored people got the education, how they are sidelined, how they are not given the opportunities, that we can clearly see in the Tar Baby and Song of Solomon. Coming to the very famous, and Toni Morrison got Nobel Prize for this, the last but not the least, the fifth one of the third three series, where we can call Beloved. Beloved is a work where we can see the stream of consciousness, and also a magic realism is clearly visible, which was parallel to Salman Rushdie's writings of magic realism. There is always a parallel where we can see the Adivasi literature, Dalit literature, Moolavasi literature, subaltern literatures and women voices are clearly having parallel with each other in the pain, agony and suffering. That is the main importance between mainstream writing or men's writing. Though a black man is writing a novel like The Invisible Man, you can very clearly see what kind of perspective man is going to engage. How personal becomes political in the voices of women is different from personal is political in the voices of male perspective. So there is a parallel, continuous dialogue and narration happens in the women's voices, from simple to complex, from personal to political, and it becomes a narrative technique. So these are few points which I thought of sharing with you when it comes to the women's voices, whether it can be Toni Morrison or Annie Sexton or Sylvia Plath. We can see lot of variations because of their race, because of their class and because of their gender. Shravya. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wise inputs. Dear students, now that we have understood the importance of women's voices in American literature, let us now learn about the importance of Jewish writing in American literature. Dr. Shobha, can you please tell us how Jewish literature forms the crux of American literature?
So now, as if we see the Jewish literature, we see that after World War II, so we see that in USA, these people they have the awareness that their writings have been clicked in everywhere, and they are being noticed everywhere. So they wanted to just talk about them, because and the topic related to Jewish literature is about.
Yeah, I think we are getting a call.
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Do
Can
you
I ask my doubt, ma'am?
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, tragedy and to psychoanalysis, these two elements have to reflect different literary genre in American literature nowadays. What are their influences in our contemporary society?
Can you repeat the question, please? It is not clear.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, ma'am. Just wait a minute. Tragedy and psychoanalysis, these two elements have to reflect different literary genre in American literature nowadays. What are their influence in our contemporary society? And also another question, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Which of following is a better way to reach writing to reader perspective or writer perspective? Please to conclude my doubts, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are the student of Ambedkar Open University. Where from you are giving a call to us? Can I know your good name?
Ma'am, I'm a student of government in college.
Okay. And you are Ambedkar Open University student. Do you have the text form with you?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Do you have the text form with you? Okay, thank you so much. I think one of the students, yeah, it's important for us to understand. It's a very valid question also, because the recent trends, when we say what kind of psychoanalytical perspective, and this is not directly related to our context, but reader response theory, where we see why it is important. That's what we are talking about, the narrative styles, where there is always a reflection of the society, there is always a reflection of what is happening around, and so society is reflected in different forms. So whenever something is happened, like for example 10 years back or maybe 2020, we all the whole world affected with because of the pandemic, right? So what is before pandemic and after pandemic? When you see the writings of before pandemic is different from the writings of after pandemic. The same thing we can see before First World War and Second World War, after Second World War and the First World War. So this kind of the reflections we can clearly see in the different genres of poetry, prose and writing. I think it's altogether a different topic altogether, so we may not be able to give complete information for this, but kindly read the textbook we have given to you, and you will be having an elaborate expansion about that.
Okay.
Take another call.
Good afternoon. You've reached Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University.
Good afternoon, madam. My name is Sai Ram.
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
calling
Saran.
from Kamam. I would like to ask a question, ma'am.
Please go ahead.
Madam, I would like to ask a question regarding Harlem movement. And also I would like to ask a question regarding black rights, like what is beauty is truth and truth is beauty. And also I would like to ask a small question. I am a political science student from B.R.Ambedkar Open University. So the question is, in the struggle for gender justice, some feminists have claimed that the goal of equality does not lead to justice, but to the erasure of difference to women's erasure, madam. So this is a question. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye, madam.
Thank you, Sairam. This is a good question, because we are starting with African American literature. Black is beautiful, and all this comes for us in one perspective. Specifically, why Harlem Renaissance? This Harlem is a place in New York which was a meeting ground for racial activists and black writers. For example, whenever they wanted to have a conversation, we can see that same thing in the Indian context also. Before independence, we used to have some writers and activists come together, they think about it, the thinkers used to come and sit and discuss one place. So the place is called somewhere in Indian context, it can be with the national leaders, maybe in the 1890s and 1910, 1920, 1930 until the national movements, right? The same thing, Harlem Renaissance also plays a vital role in black writers, black activists and black society as such. This was a place where renaissance of black literature happened, because black literature always gives a very elaborate description about the society, the people, the context, and also what kind of contributions they are doing, which was sidelined. For example, if a white according to the society, white standards are the standards. When it comes to the black writers, they are not even considered as writers. For example, in the Indian context, because I am getting that into the Indian context so that you can understand very clearly. The upper caste people, because there it is race in the continental at the level of African American literature, it is about black race and white standards. Here in Indian context, it is about caste system, because caste exists in India. So Dalit writing is different from the writers who are writing in the mainstream context. So it took 1970s and 1980s, we got Dalit Panther movement, right? The same way in 1950s, black is beautiful. It is very important to understand the historical perspective, why black movement took so much of space. It is not asking the space, but they made space for themselves. So this was the place where renaissance of black literature happened, Harlem. Harlem is a place in New York, and the lot of contribution we can see from Richard Wright's Native Son, The Outsider, Black Boy, or some of the key texts in Harlem Renaissance. Not only that, we can see Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. See, there is a difference between Toni Morrison's writing and Ralph Ellison's, though he's literally the book came out in after the Second World War, somewhere around 1940 and 50s. The works of Ralph Ellison was very clear in the society. Lot of anxiety, agony, pain, where we can see the parallels of Toni Morrison's, again the fourth novel, Song of Solomon, Tar Baby and Song of Solomon, where the naming also, Solomon dead, the column which was given to them was written by the white soldier. Someone was there at that place, and the column was different column was there, name, father's name, village. So in a position where he was so reluctant to write the exact name and all, they said Solomon, the father is dead, but that became a surname to the black person. So the same thing in the Invisible Man. It is something which gives an anxiety for the protagonist at different levels. The space and the understanding of the man's apartment, specifically white man's apartment complex, where black man living in the basement. There is again a parallel when it comes to the Ambedkar's life. When Ambedkar come back to India and he becomes a very good, he's a great scholar, but in India, to get a normal decent house, everyone rejects him to give a house, a rented house, to give a house, to get a normal house. So the same thing we can see how the narrator, who is a black man living in the basement of a white man's apartment. It is not in the flat but in the basement. In spite of that, so it is very clearly shown the place, the voice, the helplessness. This is all recorded by the black experience of Ralph Ellison. Black people have to live in the appeasement of whites. For example, I am again and again trying to come back with the subcontext of Indian scenario, because it is the basement. The same thing even happening in our Indian context as such, appeasing the upper caste people, appeasing the white standards when it comes to the African American literature. When it comes to the Indian context, it is appeasing, that means they wanted to please the upper caste people. So it is the class, caste and the gender concepts in India, whereas in African American context it is class, race and the gender. So there is always a parallel when it comes to the pain, agony and suffering of an individual as a human being. So in the Invisible Man also, how that protagonist comes out through a search for identity. Who am I? Why I should be a second-hand citizen? Though I am paying everything, though I am knowledgeable person, though why I am not getting the education on par with the white standards? Why I am not having the choices? Why I am not having the freedom? And this kind of questions are very clear in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, both externally and internally. I think Shobha will give more information regarding other works as such as with Ellison and also with the Invisible Man. Yeah, Dr. Shobha.
So I would continue with Ralph Ellison's here, Invisible Man. As the title itself indicates, this man physically, even though he is visible, but he is not visible to the white people here. So he is only visible to the black people. And the kind of community where he stays, where he is not visible, and he has a good education also along with that, but still he has not been noted. So in one of the colleges where he studies, and he also is been just called upon the stage to just give his introduction, because he is a good speaker and he is also a good boxer, and he also gets a scholarship, but the scholarship, the briefcase which contains the scholarship, that is not been given into his hand, because the white community people, they throw the challenge to him that unless you don't fight with your own black people and you don't win over there, you can't, your scholarship will not be handed over to you. Then he immediately accepts the challenge and he goes on with the fight, and he was bleeding as well as sweating, but still he comes to the the stage, he delivers the speech and impresses the people and just takes the scholarship and joins in some other college. So the college which belongs to Harlem. So here again, in most of the African American writers, Harlem is really an important place where they would like to be part of that, because that is the place which gives them an identity. So he shifts to that place, and the dean of the college of Ralph and Ellison gives him the letter, who is been called as Bledsoe. So he gives the letter, but that letter is not at all valid letter, because he again fools him. So most of the times he has such an experience with the white people, because they don't want to give him the identity, they just want to fool them. Then he doesn't even believe the white people, then he just goes on with the other person, then he meets Norton in his way. So Norton again, he just provides him one of the job, then he also goes with his speeches also. He just impresses the people with the speech, and especially the black man, what kind of identity we need and what kind of sufferings we are going through in this society. Then one of his speech is being heard by Jack Brotherhood. So this person, he, after listening to his speech, he gets impresses and what kind of personality he is, and he is also trying to gather the crowd. So that really impressed Jack Brotherhood. So then he wants him to get involved into his organization, the political organization where he works for. Then Ralph, but he is in a confusion, because he still is not able to accept the people in the kind of people he has been faced in the society. But after some time, he just has a trust upon this brotherhood, then he joins his political organization, and finally he also succeeds over there through his speeches. So this is how this man comes out in the end of that, even though he has been suffered a lot, but he has learned a lot from those sufferings, and now he also trusts his own people, and he realizes them how to just survive in this community, because the title says invisible man. It's not a magical invisible, but it is the invisible which happens physically. People have been not noted him, but still being a boxer, being a speaker. So these are the things which we get noted over in Ralph Ellison's invisible speaker. And we also have one more famous personality, James Baldwin. So when you say James Baldwin's work which has been prescribed here, Go Tell It on the Mountain. So when you just see the title itself, Go Tell It on the Mountain, what does that say? So here we see a young hero, who belongs to the teenager group. So how this boy, he doesn't like his own community, people, because they have accepted the depression and they have accepted being black and being ignored by the society. And this teenager boy, he wants to create an identity for his own people, and in this process his own people try to hate him. But when he realizes the reality, then again he walks along with his parents on an open street, and he really feels happy and he enjoys the environment around him. So we see such changes in the novel, in the work of James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain. So how nice, in a nice way. And it also portrays about the family conflicts, identities in the black community, and we also have about the religion concepts in these kind of things. So I think Harlem really, the place Harlem itself plays an important role in every novel, because this is the place where the people, see, they don't want to be part of white community, they want their identity from their own community. So the kind of work they have presented, that they want to go through their own community. So Harlem, they have, and the people who were in Chicago, they also came, the Negro Chicago, they were being called as Negro Chicago, just see the name. So the moment they shift to Harlem, and when they gather at one place, as madam said, so Harlem Renaissance, so where they talked, where they communicated with each other, because they needed the emergency of black people as a community, as together, as one. So because they wanted to discuss their issues, problems, and come out of those things. See, now they have the identity, they have the power of speech, they have power of writing. So I would like to conclude here with all these things. And one more famous writer is Wright, I think,
Yes.
who has written Native Son. So and this Harlem has, I think this began in late of 1920s and it has ended in mid 1930s. So this was such a wonderful period where we got to encounter with so many famous writers, I think.
Yeah. Continuing with what Dr. Shobha said, it's important for us to understand the context of the history also here. Why this search for identity, search for self, and how they made space for themselves is also a beginning point for us before black movement started as Harlem Renaissance. And these are all historical writings. I think you changed the slide. These are all historical writings which we discussed, right from the women writers to the men writers, starting with Baldwin, and the last but not the least, black art movement. Why it is very important for black people, and when it comes to the single entity.
Okay. Good afternoon. You've reached Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Open University.
Okay, ma'am. I am a student of Professor Ramreddy Distance Education, ma'am, Islam University.
Okay,
This is
sir.
not related to exhibition question, ma'am. This is my own observation in American literature. So, can I ask, ma'am?
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead.
We very well know that poetry is a lot of philosophy. For poetry is means a hidden philosophy of poet. So my doubt is, ma'am, how to influence poetry, philosophy, sociology, psychoanalysis, poet perspective.
What's your name? What's your name, my dear friend? What's your name?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Very good. So the question is a very interesting question. He was trying to see in a very, very modern perspective, understanding the literature not only from a literary point of view with a literary value, but he's getting the anthropology, sociology and social context of this particular literature. Definitely the art forms, whether it can be literature or it can be music and it can be the writings or even the instrument as such, everything is a reflection of the society. Art always got that kind of different forms. When it comes to analytical, psychoanalytical perspective, definitely the writer is going to be influenced by the society. So it is something which is reflected, which can be sometimes in a better way, sometimes in a different genres, and many times in different genres. It can be poetry, it can be a small story, it can be novel, or it can be a novella, or in any form we can see it is all reflections of the society. Then what is a society is made of? Society is made of human beings, human experiences. That is what I think in a nutshell. We cannot go ahead with all the examples that we got. We are focusing again back to American and African American literature here. I think the student was able to get a little bit of lead. So we are just giving it the tip of the iceberg because of the constraint of the time. Definitely it's an interesting question. We try to answer that in an appropriate way, but please do read, and there is a lot of connection. That's the reason nowadays, after National Education Policy 2020, we are speaking on multidisciplinary approach for education system. Literature and language and literature, they are directly linked to this social consciousness, at the same time collective learning. So it is not something, knowledge is not in a compartmental boxes, but it is something which is overlap. That's why we speak on liberal arts also, where sciences, management and art forms come together. Coming to the point of again back to Pavilion, the black art movement. So we were continuing with that. I think Shobha, if you want to say something, or shall I go ahead with the poetry of black poetry?
Yeah, you can go with the black poetry.
Poetry, because it is all about, we started with the first women voices, then we went on with Jewish writing. The last chapter is on specifically we are focusing from a different perspective of Harlem Renaissance and the black art movement and black poetry. Dr. Shobha will give more information regarding that black poetry. Yeah.
So when we see Langston Hughes here, the very blues, the leader of here in poetry also, when we see the richness of the black American culture, how they have portrayed it, and here the lines, when we can also see the lines of the poem Fire here. Fire, fire, Lord, fire gone, burn my soul. See, the soul is being burned by fire here. What does it indicate? See how much pain this person feels about the being black, and the soul is also being burnt over here. So you can just, and another poetry writer also we have, Imamu Amiri Baraka. Here we have the half white college student. So we also have his poetries also. I think I have
Yeah. See, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Shobha, why it is important, the words here, what exactly they are representing. They are not something which are calm and composed, but you can see a fiery kind of an anxiety, or the unrest that is very clear, because their personal experiences of the pain, agony and the loss also, because the family system as such is in a great dilemma and damaged condition. That is all reflected in the personal experiences of the women writing as well as the man's writing, black man's writing. I am just taking Amiri Baraka's half white student college, where half of them are black people and half of them are white. It's a mixed college where how white standards described, how white standards made the other black students there very uncomfortable. You can see the lines here, the poem lines. Yourself, how do you sound? Your words, are they yours? The ghost you see in the mirror, is it real? You, can you hear? You are not an imitation grey boy. See, this is very important to understand in between lines of the poetry. Why they wrote like that? Is there any specific reason for that? Yes, definitely. The poetry that the poems that are written by the black people are different from, it is not about the roses, but the pain of the rose or the burnt of the rose, or it can be fire in the rose. So this is something which is very important when it comes to the context of the black writing. So coming to the last, next slide. Yeah, coming to the last one is the black drama, commentary about the black and white communities and their interactions. Hansberg's A Rise in the Sun and James Baldwin's Blue of the Mr. Charlie and Baraka's Dutchman. So given the context of the specific teleconference today, we started with women's voices. It is the 5th block. I trust students have enjoyed. We are giving it's only a tip of the iceberg, but it is your responsibility to go about with your textbooks, and I hope like you will be enjoying the reading to come to know about American literature and specifically Afro-American literature, women's voices and Jewish writing. Thanks for being with us and for all your questions. Happy reading. Thank you.